my Commissioner Schwartz iPhone that it is 9 o'clock and we will in fact commence our meeting. Could we please have a roll call?
Mr. Rowe?
Present. Present.
Ms. Schwartz?
Here.
Mrs. Dussault?
Here. Let's move on to the approval of the minutes. Does anybody have any corrections, deletions, additions?
I do not.
No.
All right, may I have a motion then for acceptance?
I'll make a motion to approve the meetings.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? No opposition. Minutes pass. Public comment. We have a member of the public, and I believe that is Mrs. Booth. Is that correct?
Yes.
Well, you are on our new business first practices, so you can be both public comment and our guest speaker. If you would please come up to the podium, and we are very anxiously awaiting what you have to say.
I appreciate your time this morning.
If you could bring the microphone just a little bit closer to you, because otherwise someone from the audio will say that they can't hear. Okay?
Is that better? Do you think that'll
Oh,
do?
that's much better. Yes, thank you.
Now I might maybe too loud.
No, you're good. No, it's
Okay.
great.
Okay, so what I have today to present to the City of Vero Beach Tree and Beautification Commission is best management practices of pruning mature trees that's provided to the public by the University of Florida and the Institute of Food and Agricultural Sciences. And this is presentation specifically, they titled it Urban Forest Hurricane Recovery Program. It was created in 2015, written by Dr. Edward Gilman and Dr. Amanda Bison. And I believe Nanette is here. I don't remember your last name. Haynes. Thank you. I'm so glad that you're here too. I know we've talked several times and seem to be in agreement on the points that I've brought, trying to bring to the city and to the county's attention. I'm a permanent resident. I live in Vista Gardens Condominium Association, and this best management practice really is specifically geared towards our iconic mature oak trees. I could talk also on sable palms, but today I'm talking on the oak trees. And whenever I made this presentation to the county, I was requesting that landscaping and tree protection ordinances be updated to reflect best management practice when pruning a mature tree is indicated. And also I was encouraging enforcement of really even the current county code, but hopefully an updated county code.
And were any of those things ever implemented?
I was being naive to the ways of government. I didn't realize I probably should have gotten support from one of the commissioners prior to bringing the presentation to their attention. And so no vote was taken, and I met thereafter with Commissioner Adams, who was very encouraging, as she said, to reach out to certain individuals to obtain support from them. I have been working on that since then.
And so that's strictly at the county level?
That was at the county level, but when I found out about the Tree and Beautification Commission, I thought, who better to hear this presentation than yourselves, with the hope that perhaps you would support what I'm going to present and take it from there.
Okay. Thank you.
Well, you're welcome. And I was just out of town. I have medical appointments at Mayo Clinic every so often, and I was watching PBS. They had a presentation about the Everglades, the river of grass, and it talked about how it took a long time really to get action to preserve any of the Everglades.
Yeah.
And
That's an understatement.
you know, and it was in a crisis mode at that time. Really still is. I mean, if truth be known, right? We know that. And I've had that same sense of urgency about the oak trees that I see in our city, in our county, from a girlfriend who's traveled the state of Florida recently. She said she sees the same type of inappropriate pruning going on throughout the state of Florida. And I'll just go, one of my slides, it's talking about how these particularly southern live oak are only found in hurricane-prone areas. And we have to ask ourselves, well, why is that? Well, obviously they're here especially made for this area because they tend to be have a low center of gravity, because if you see a oak tree, a southern live oak, a mature southern live oak in its natural state, typically they do have those low spreading branches. They have a lot of thick interior, and those kind of help ground them and put their center of gravity low so that they are less prone to uprooting in hurricane storms.
Well, they're like adaptive. They're adapted to that specific.
Well, yes. So that's why, I mean, they're only found along hurricane-prone coastline from Virginia through Texas. That's where you find southern live oak. And we, again, we have to say, well, why are they only found there? Well, they must be able to withstand these storms. And what I'm seeing is the pruning that we're doing is taking away their natural protective adaptations, if you will, to storms. So anyway, I'll go on, and my next slide then is on how the Constitution of the state of Florida provides a clear statement that the actions of the legislature and state agents of Florida are to be defined and guided by policies that conserve and protect the Florida environment. And you have this presentation, hopefully, well, I think maybe Rita hasn't gotten it to you yet. I sent it on Monday, the email on Monday, but I guess, sometimes emails get lost and that kind of thing. So anyway, so as you know, the Institute of Food and Agricultural Sciences, which is termed IFAS, right, for short, at the University of Florida, is cited by the Florida statutes as the authoritative source for horticulture and landscaping in Florida. So our own Florida statute says that we should abide by the guidelines that come out of the University of Florida IFAS. And in 2006, over a decade ago now, the Florida legislature created IFAS, the Institute of Food and Agricultural Sciences. And you can go online to the IFAS Center for Landscape Conservation and Ecology, and in that they say their mission is to promote the protection and preservation of Florida's natural resources and quality of life through responsible landscape management. So what I'm trying to do here is set up my premise from the beginning that this presentation, again, made possible to the public by UF IFAS, and that how they are cited as an authoritative source by our own statutes to follow their guidelines. And then this is the most important slide that I have, I think, in this whole presentation. That is pruning of mature trees, right there on this UF IFAS presentation. And on this slide, it says that there's 3 bullets, and the first one is, old trees can decline as a result of removing too much live tissue. Try not to remove more than 10% of the live foliage on a mature tree. Remove more than 10% only for a good reason, such as a cracked live branch over a house, it says. And on this slide, I research everything before I buy into it. My actual field of expertise is as a retired nurse practitioner. But I have a master's degree. I had to write a thesis maybe some of you have had to do that too. You understand research, and you know that you can't just take it on face value. Even anything that I see from University of Florida, IFAS, I try to find the references. I try to go back as far as I can as a lay person in the field of landscaping, to try to find where did they come up with these recommendations. And one of the things, whenever I'm talking about mature trees, the best I could find is that, and maybe Nanette would concur with me, I hope so, but it seems to me that mature trees, particularly oak trees, we can kind of assume that they're mature whenever they're 50 feet tall. I don't know if that would be. And so pruning of mature trees should be purposeful rather than habitual. Have a plan to not remove more than 10% of the live foliage on a mature tree. And then if you have that, if that ordinance is updated, and I'll go on to what that the current ordinance is, it really needs to be enforced, because if you have a regulation of any kind and you don't have enforcement of it, it's meaningless in the end.
That's absolutely right. Mm-hmm.
So enforcement is needed to protect our mature oak trees. And let me explain what energy reserves are of a tree. They are the starch, sugars, and oils that are stored in branches, stems, the trunk, and roots. Energy reserves can be preserved by removing the fewest number of live branches necessary to accomplish the desired objective. Excessive branch removal depletes reserves and reduces the ability of the tree to photosynthesize more energy. And when there's excessive branch removal, what's taken off along with the branch? The leaves. That's where the tree photosynthesizes. That's where it takes in our carbon dioxide, gives us oxygen, and takes that carbon dioxide and makes it into energy. So many trees, if they're over-pruned, they generate something called adventitious sprouts in response to that over-pruning as they attempt to replace stored energy. And as you look at our trees throughout the communities here, you will see a lot of sprouting. And I believe that is due to having too many branches and thus the foliage or leaves removed, particularly at any one given time. Our current Indian River County ordinance is they're using a standard of removing no more than 25% of a living crown. 25% of a living crown. That's a lot. I mean, if we remove 25% of us, we'd be missing a good portion of what we need to have good quality of life and to do the things we need to do, versus the University of Florida standard of 10% of the foliage on a mature tree.
That's what I was just going to ask.
Well, I have a question then. Mm-hmm. If in fact, as you've just stated, that the University of Florida's program is the key statewide, how could our county have an ordinance which essentially it would appear to violate the state law?
Well, to add to that, where did they get their specifics, the county, to their guidelines? That's what I would ask.
Those are guidelines those are called ANSI standards, and that is the, if I can remember what the name of what that stands for.
National Standards Institute.
Thank you. Yes, so that is a standard that is used by communities throughout the world, really, I guess, or for the United States at least, where there's a standard that's decided by experts in the field, and they have said 25% of the live living crown. That is an old. That has been the standard for a really long time.
That's what my next question was, what the date was on that, and what supersedes UF's now current research, and what year that started.
Well, this publication that I have from University of Florida's 2015, I haven't seen anything more current.
Yeah.
It's surprised. Well, I'll tell you, Dr. Edward Gilman, he's retired just recently from the University of Florida. He's considered to be the expert on tree care in the state of Florida, but I've read some things from him more recently. I believe that he would like to backtrack and maybe retract some of the writings that he's had in the past, because I believe he doesn't come out and say it directly, but I believe he's noticing too the exaggerated pruning of our trees, particularly our mature oak trees, and he's very concerned, it seems to me, in the things that I'm reading from him lately.
Well, go ahead.
If you, Nanette, why would they be in such conflict?
I can't speak to anything about any River County.
I think it's just sometimes ongoing. It's like, I'm just going to use it as an example on cancer. Everybody knows that. So in 2000, it's not the same premise that it is in 2018. So the same with the trees. I mean, how long and how involved is the study? Maybe they didn't see, and I'm just making this up, a black moss on a tree 35 years ago, and now they do because of environmental factors, so they just have to readjust what their plan is. I mean, that's my train of thought.
Right.
The same as you do any research. I mean, you don't know what all the variables are until you come across them.
Right, and I would, so that's what I was saying in this update needed of the Indian River County Ordinance, that I actually have more evidence here that I'll go into as I go along in this presentation.
The question that I have is that if 25% is a national study, and is there a difference between, as you point out in the beginning, live oaks that are hurricane resistant in certain areas? Are they different kinds of live oaks from live oaks which would be incorporated into this 25% rule?
I believe what I can say to that is that the 25% rule really is for trees across the board, no matter what kind of tree. Right. And what I'm getting at with this slide, I'll be truthful with you. When it's a specimen tree, when it's a ligustrum, they're an ornamental tree. You can shape them however you want. You can take off 25% if you want to do that. But I'm trying to. I would like to see the ordinance changed, even if it just is specific to, because our ordinance does address our native trees, and this 25% standard is also in conjunction with that, in that same ordinance is in conjunction with our native trees. I would like to see the standard updated to save our southern live oak trees specifically.
Yeah. So to distinguish essentially from the 25% to omit our native live oaks.
Yeah, we could get that granular. We could get that granular. I mean, it wouldn't hurt anything to just change the standard completely and make it 10% of a mature tree. Well, it wouldn't hurt it wouldn't hurt the tree. I mean, it would be more of a tree protection of any tree, really, whenever you're talking about it. But if you're going to have to regulate something, then let's regulate it. If we can at least get protection for our mature live oaks.
Right, and I think that's I think politically and governmentally that would probably be the better way.
Better, yeah.
Yeah, I mean to get them to reduce it all to 10, you're not going to get there.
Well, I mean, you might eventually.
Yeah, I think
as you see the benefit to the tree health.
Could be
for our live oaks, and you could maybe extrapolate that out to other trees. But.
Okay.
Right. Yeah.
Sorry, I keep interrupting.
No, it's fine. I love discussion. That makes things, I mean, might as well ask the questions while you're thinking about them.
Yeah. Right. Well, you don't know what you don't know until you know it.
Yes.
I mean, in anything.
Yes.
How would this apply to people like FPL and things like that?
Well, I think good question, and a lot of trees, unfortunately, have been grown right underneath the tree, right underneath where the electric lines are. Like you have your row of live oaks out here by this tree, by the electric line. Right. It looks like they've done a good job of preserving what they can of the trees along that while allowing for clearance for the electric and utility lines. But and if you want to take a little field trip right out to your own front yard, we can do that, because I was looking at that and I was saying, so the tree on the corner, the oak tree on the corner, it looks like they've preserved the interior. We're going to get to that too in these slides. But and then if you look at the rest of them, even though they did very well accommodating for the utility lines, they still reamed out the interior on those trees, and I'm like, wonder why they did those but didn't do the one on the corner. Somehow it got preserved. Yay, at least one of them got preserved. I can show you the difference just out in your own yard here after this is, if you want to see it.
Would that be dependent upon who's pruning? In other words, 60 is one route, Route 1 is another route. Federal, state, county, does that make a difference as to who prunes the tree?
And it might have been I ran out there and caught whoever was out there doing it and was screaming at them.
Yeah.
No,
well,
seriously.
Yeah.
I don't. The utility company was out there pruning, and I was out there.
Oh, I'm not even talking about the utility company. I'm saying that because...
Well, but that's who does the
right,
trimming.
but because of the other aspect of it, because our roadways are combinations of city, town, county, state, federal.
Well, yeah, when you have trees in the city that are, for instance, along A1A, and you have the DOT contractor trimming those.
Right.
Yeah. That's their responsibility.
Right.
So yes, you have other agencies that are involved to a certain extent, but most of them are done.
Right. I mean, along Route 1, any of those medians would be done by the state through the federal government?
Yeah, we don't do anything
right.
on US 1.
But that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So the distinction has to be made that when we talk about trees that are being pruned,
right.
the location of the tree is actually very important to
Certainly.
determine who's doing the pruning.
Right.
And what I have seen in our own community, again, that's also part of my presentation here, though, in Vista Gardens, which is county, it's not city, but what got me even interested in this topic is noticed one day coming back from somewhere and looking at how the trees had been so excessively pruned, and goodness, I was shocked, and I called our chairperson. He's appointed by our board of the HOA, and I said, they've taken definitely much more than 25% of these trees all in one fell swoop. And he laughed. He said, oh, well, good, then we got a bargain, didn't we?
Yeah, well, that's
right.
part of the problem right there.
Yeah, and so that didn't sit well with me, and so since then I have been on my crusade for trying to save trees. So I'm going to carry on if that's all right. And so the risk of removing too much live tissue from a mature tree, it can cause damage, disease, and death of the tree. And it does this by forcing use of energy, by initiating its defense mechanisms. And of course, one of those major defense mechanisms is the sprouting that you will see. You can even see out here in your yard. That removes energy reserves. It can cause cracking, sprouting, branch death, and then eventually tree mortality. You know, it does make the tree more susceptible to damage and disease. One of the slides that was in this presentation talked about removing selectively small live branches from the edge of a canopy to reduce the crown density. I'm on page 9 if you're looking at the presentation.
Okay.
At least I think, hopefully it's page 9 on yours. So pruning to thin, and you see a diagram there, inappropriate pruning on the one hand and then appropriate pruning.
Right there.
Right, I see it.
It's very interesting, though, again, whenever you dig into some of this stuff and you're saying, now, where did the University of Florida get this? The one thing that I like about this slide, it warns against removing interior branches within the body of the notes. But Then you have the second bullet, which is increasing light and air penetration to promote internal foliage. I can't find any evidence for that. And then reducing the risk of storm damage. I don't know how I came across him, but Dr. Gregory Dahl, he's a renowned expert on tree pruning from West Virginia. And I looked at his CV, and it's pages and pages long. He is, like, I guess you could say, equivalent to a Dr. Edward Gilman. And I reached out to him, as I did to Dr. Gilman and to some other guys I see referenced as experts. And he actually responded back to me, and he said his summary of the evidence, and he sent me some studies in an email. He said, actually, there's no evidence that would substantiate pruning trees to reduce wind damage. He says there's a lack of scientific evidence for pruning trees to reduce wind damage.
Wind damage to the tree, or wind damage because a branch could be broken off?
Wind damage to the tree, which then results in, whenever we're talking about damage, we're talking about loss of branches, basically,
right,
that would, or an uprooting of the tree.
That kind of doesn't make sense in one way, because wouldn't you be able to tell, like, maybe the life expectancy of the tree was hampered by whatever that damage was? I mean, maybe I'm looking at it too much, but I would think that there would be some kind. I don't know. I find that interesting.
When you talk about life expectancy, it's even difficult to get a handle on that, because what I'm hearing different people say the same thing. Say, for instance, for laurel oaks, which are also common here, we have a combination of southern live oaks and laurel oaks growing naturally, and they say, well, their lifespan is maybe 50 or 60 years. Has anybody really been keeping track? So, like, has somebody kept records of, there was no laurel oak there in 1938, and now there is, or you know what I mean? Has somebody been keeping?
No, but I do in my own yard. Let me just go back to that. Mm-hmm. I know that the ones that I have, I've lived there 25 years, and they were there because I asked the owner, the previous owner, and I don't think I'm unique in any of that. So they were there like 10 years. So now when I had an arborist look at it, and he said, well, they're laurel oaks, they're kind of to the end of their lifespan. And he said, you can start seeing it because of... So I wonder where he's getting his information from, but I mean,
Excuse me, I don't mean to be rude. I do have to question, though, because I'm a volunteer here, and I'm on the job. This is a very lengthy presentation. Are we going to go through every page? I'm not.
Well, I was planning.
Long of a program.
I'm sorry.
Do we have somewhere we're going with this?
I thought it was going to be an AV presentation I was going to go through, and it would take 10 minutes, But we do have a lot of questions.
I want to be educated, but I don't want to take your time. But
I understand. You have an agenda.
I fully understand.
Yeah, you have an agenda.
Is there a way, well, I have two thoughts. One, perhaps in your library instruction.
Well, I was going to get to that.
Right. This might be an absolutely wonderful, for the public, a wonderful presentation. Yeah. Unfortunately, we have a huge agenda here. So if you could sum up, and please, Neil's position is correct.
Yes. Right.
I would appreciate it.
Okay, well, summing up, there are some inappropriate pruning types. One is very specifically should not do, and you see this all around. You'll see it yourselves, called lion's tailing, where the tree is only left with little circles of foliage at the end of the long branches. Right. It actually makes them more susceptible to damage and tree limb breakage, because all the weight is centered at the end. When the interior is reamed out, which you will also see that in many places, and some of your trees out here, actually, there's no habitat for wildlife. You just absolutely just obliterate any habitat for birds, particularly migratory bird migrations of birds coming through. They don't have anywhere to land. There's no cover for them as they go from tree to tree, or there's no cover for our nesting birds that stay here year round. So that the inappropriate pruning types that we're seeing are affecting our wildlife. And I just want to say, too, pruning to raise, you don't have to take out limbs on a tree to raise for clearance for trucks coming through. According to University of Florida, you can selectively remove some branches at the tips, and as it does with our hair, whenever we get a trim of our hair on the bottom, it lifts our hair up all the way. You can do that with a tree. But let me just say that trimming of a tree really should be termed pruning, because that's what it is. And for a tree, it doesn't regrow that material that's removed. That's why a plan for every tree is so necessary. You will see in your handout there trees that look like this, and you have some right across the street. You have no interior, and you have the lower branches totally removed instead of taking from the tips. And it's very difficult to restore a tree like that. And you're talking about, this is a young tree, but with our mature trees, you do that. You're just opening up susceptibility to disease and death. Sprouting all along the limbs, you'll see that. You'll see sprouting even from the trunk, trying to create leaves to photosynthesize. And so all of those are bad practices. They should be discouraged. They should be regulated against. As a matter of fact, they are in the regulation of the county, not to lion's tail. And I think something that some people really don't understand is that when we talk about arboriculture in Florida, no training is required for anyone to prune trees. They don't have to have any training whatsoever. Tree pruners calling themselves arborists, they're not licensed as professionals by the state of Florida. I mean, you have to have a license to get your nails done. You don't have to have a license from the state of Florida to prune a tree. Tree pruners only have a business license from the Indian River County, but they'll say in their business card and in their materials that they're licensed. It's an occupational tax.
Right. Yeah.
That's all it is.
Right.
To be certified by the International Society of Arborists or other similar organizations has only minimal requirements, maybe a high school education. They take a one-time written test. They might have 15 continuing education credits every couple of years, and they pay their annual dues. Very minimal training to be certified and to have that label on your truck as you're going around town or on your website, a certified arborist. There is no accountability for tree pruners in Florida. Unlicensed, untrained tree pruners have enormous earning power. They use myths to perpetuate unproved reasons to persuade municipalities, homeowners, and HOAs to over-prune trees every year.
I just thought that when you said this about the one that told me about my tree, I just kind of
every year they say, you need to prune your trees. It's time. We're getting into hurricane season. Our trees in Vista Gardens, I don't know how they can take anything more off, honestly. And they're coming out any time now to prune our trees again.
Right. Well, that is done a lot. Well, I have to tell you, Katherine, that this has been really very informative. My suggestion to you, besides discussing a presentation with Cynthia, would be that to start at the top and look at the federal, the state regulations, and then see if there's any imposition. But I do thank you so much. This has been very educational. I really do appreciate it.
Thank you. I just have one more point, really quick, and then I'll stop. Due to high demand for unskilled labor, which is arboriculture, it's one of the top 10 at-risk industries for human trafficking, slave labor, and illegal border crossings and illegal immigration. Wow. There's a big connection there, so I just think you need to understand that as well.
Very topical way to get that in.
Yeah.
That's good.
All right, so I guess I'll be hearing back from you, Miss Cynthia?
Yes, I actually am doing a presentation at the library, and I can offer it to you as well for your own platform, because they're very open to it on this very topic as far as the city conjunction goes, and it is January 28th at 6:30 p.m. at the main library.
Okay.
And I will.
Sounds
I
good.
got your email, and I'll send you because you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'd love to have an
Yes.
opportunity to present. I
Thank
appreciate
you
it.
so much. We
Yeah,
really
thank you.
appreciate
I'd like to
it.
contact you as well, but
Yes.
we'll do
Sure.
that offline.
Sure.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
What a whirlwind of information.
Yeah.
Wow. Good.
All right, let's move on to item new business, the beautification weekend banner, yard signs, and yard debris pickup. Is that Cynthia?
Well, I actually contacted Rita because I did find out that we have to, so we all know that we have to put the permit in place to put the yard signs out.
That's correct.
Yeah, so I don't know if we're timely with that, Rita, or if we're,
So you'll still have time. Tammy asked to let her know if you want her to go ahead and process and get it processed through for you to get the stickers for them.
yeah, because the big deal about that now this year is we cannot hang the banner because the Centennial banner is downtown, and that is the only banner that's going to be hanged, is that the right word, for the year? So we don't have our banner up, so that makes our yard signs even more important.
Okay.
So I remember one time, and I'm just throwing this out, I did it one year and I did them all over town, okay? Then Chris did it because it was like, we didn't really know how to do it because we just started doing it a couple of years ago. More centered, like in a certain section, like a bunch out on State Route 60 coming into town, like right across from St. Helens, a bunch of yard signs, and then he did a bunch on the beach, so they were like consolidated and it would make it more impact. I don't know if everyone thinks that's a better idea, or put them all over to get the message out there.
Well, we're going to be in competition with all of the political signs right now because of the special election. So
what day is that special election?
27th?
26, something like that, yeah.
26th, I think.
Okay.
26th.
So we're the 9th and 10th.
So it would seem to me that if we could put our signs near the political signs, they are at least going to be seen. You're going to be looking at the political sign, so you might look at the sign next to it.
You know who's got a good list of signage locations is
Who?
the Alzheimer Parkinson Association.
Is that right?
I could ask them if they would share that list with us, so it might help
Super.
us find out where to put them, because they've been successful with their walk to remember. I mean, I'm sure other people
that's a
have
good
such
idea.
lists,
Yeah,
but
that is a good. When I did it, I wasn't that.
they've got it down to a science.
Oh, great.
We should hire them to do it. But anyway.
Yeah.
That would be great, Neil, if you could do that and
I'll check
get
on
back
that today.
to Rita so
Okay.
she can get to...
Yeah, so that's a yes on the signs for Tammy.
But yes, if Tammy would be so kind, Rita, as to do that, I think that would be great.
Because that's so important. Now, the other part to that is, remember, Marilyn, and you were on the commission when we did that, the first year that we did it, Nanette, too, is it was any debris that the people put out on the street was welcome to be picked up. Am I saying that the right way?
Originally, yes.
So do we need to address that
If I
again?
remember, there was a problem with that. Somehow I remember, it's a long time ago,
Yeah, I know.
but I remember that there were schedules for removal, and if the area of the city fell within that schedule, they would pick it up, but if it didn't, it would be picked up at a later time.
Yeah, because yard debris day is Wednesday.
Yeah, it's
Right.
Wednesday.
I don't think they were doing a special pickup.
Yeah, that's what I remember. I remember that there was a desire to have a special pickup, and we were told, put it out, but it may have to be laying there. Obviously, if you did it over the weekend,
2 or 3 days.
Yeah, it was. They weren't going to do a special pickup.
So the other side to that then is on a normal routine Wednesday, you're limited. I mean, you're really not, because I know I've put out 5 or 6 or 8 barrels to stuff. This would mean that on that Wednesday routine day, that whatever you put out there, they'd pick up.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
So if you put out 45 barrels, just for argument's sake, they're going to take it.
Well, I don't know about that.
I don't know whether that's
I've been
true,
called
but-
once. I had to pay like
Yeah, I'm not answering that.
$40 or something.
Right, okay.
I don't know the answer
All
to
right,
that
but
I'm being facetious, but you know what I mean.
Right.
That's what I'm thinking. Okay.
So that's great in terms of all possibilities with respect to that. The yard sign location, I think, is wonderful if you could do that, Neil, because that would aid us. And then when the timing of when the signs are allowed, if I remember correctly,
It's just the
the
weekend
weekend
The
before.
Thursday before.
Thursday before.
Yeah.
Not the weekend before, the Thursday before.
When is your thing?
The 9th and
9th,
10th.
10th.
So
What
it'll
day?
be
That's,
Saturday and Sunday.
yeah, so the Thursday before your event.
Wow. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
If that's what it is, that's what it is. I think one of the things we're going to have to do is, for next year, we're going to have to look to see how we publicize this far better than we've been doing.
Well, right, and I did think about that, and I did write the thing for, the two things that I'm trying to do, like at the last minute, is to say that's the ending of my presentation at the library, because it'll be 2 weeks after
Right.
that, so that I end the presentation with that. And also, I did write an article, and is in here, to the News Weekly, and I'm keeping my fingers crossed, because he did say he would give me a month, every month, a section
Okay.
to write it.
Great.
So I'm trying to get that going, but this specific one in the News Weekly is for the program at the library and then for Beautification Weekend.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Recruiting new tree and beautification commission members. Is everyone aware that Barbara has resigned?
No.
Yeah. As Rita stated, we're in epidemic proportions here of people leaving. I'm starting to get a complex for
No,
the
it's
rest
not
of us.
It isn't.
But, so we are down to Neil, Fran, you and I. And we really need to come up with some recruiting mechanism on our part. Obviously, in terms of the city, you know, it's there, and they can, you know, anybody interested. But I think that we've got to do more than just allow anybody to come up. We need to really make being on this commission is such a wonderful opportunity to do so many things for the city that I would like to see if we can come up with a better recruiting system within ourselves. I also learned that both Neil and Fran have now been made permanent members, and we are just delighted with respect to that. So the commission is strong as it stands, but we do need new blood, and I would just anything anyone can think of to do would be most appreciated.
Rita, as far as the people on the commission, do you have to, and I should know this, but I won't remember, be in the city limits, to live in the city limits, or it's anyone on the anyone?
You can have city and county residents. I guess they prefer more city than county, but they either one.
Okay. So if you'd like to join us. See?
Well,
there
then
you go.
Right in there.
Step up.
Okay, well, as long as we can all think about that, that would be, I would be appreciative. My feeling is that Cynthia's project with the library may very well be an opportunity to do that, because it's, again, in public view, and I think that you will do very well.
You mean to say that we need...
Recruiter, yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I just put the mental note to that.
Yeah, I mean...
So my PowerPoint now presentation is actually more involved than this, you know, just for your... Sure. Because it's got to get approved by you, but I've already, in the last 2 days, added like 5 things. But I certainly will add that.
Yeah, we'll need maybe a tree pointing out and saying, we need you.
No, We will. Well, we have one member right now, so we have a full board.
Right.
So there you go.
Okay.
It's a good win-win.
Okay, let's move on to old business. Pricing for McWilliam Park Centennial Tree Plaque.
Still waiting for the company to give me a quote.
Okay.
But they're working on it.
All right.
Yeah. Well, it's not thousands, so we're good.
Oh, no. Oh, my goodness.
I'm busting you. It's good.
No.
Okay. Update on the 100th anniversary. My understanding is that the 100th anniversary is doing very well. The next meeting is the 31st, and I will be there. As I understand it, the poster competition went very well.
Oh, good.
The presentation of winners, and then there were enough participants to create one poster. And so there is one poster with all of the youngsters who participated, and that will be sold.
Cool.
So it's a collage then.
It is a collage,
wow, that's excellent.
That was our original. That was our original desire. As far as our 100th anniversary, that is obviously in May, Founders Day, and I have also joined another portion of the centennial, which you may not see directly as Tree and Beautification. It's their interfaith committee, and that will be a very large part of our Founders Day. We are going to have all of the churches, synagogues, mosques, etc., part of a program which will be music and chorus and so forth. And so I felt that since this is a big opportunity for us with respect to our presentation, then I wanted to be part of that presentation as well. And that meeting is next Thursday, the 24th.
Who's the head of the interfaith?
It is a variety of pastors and members of our religious community. I don't know whether there's a head, so to speak. They were loosely formed, and we're going to, from what I understand, the January meeting is going to get down to basics.
Okay, because I know a little bit about it in the community. I'm just wondering if it's the same people, because it's a fabulous mission.
Is that at the Baptist Church?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
And so, and I am very excited about it, because I think it will be a wonderful part of Founders Day, but it's also because the Founders Day celebration is our unveiling of our gift to the city. I really wanted to be involved as best I could with as many participants, because that Founders Day is going to be a huge
it will.
Group.
It will. I have to back up to one initiative. Okay, so I just invited Miss Katherine Booth to join the Tree Commission. She cannot join it immediately.
No, she's got to go through the process.
Right, because otherwise she won't be able to be at my presentation because of the sunshine law in the library.
What date is that?
January 28th, so she won't be approved by then. I'm just
but it wouldn't make any difference. I mean, the point of it is, I would think that Katherine's presentation at your event would be a wonderful opportunity.
She can't be there if she's a commission member, though.
But she wouldn't be a commission member.
That's what I just brought that up. I'm just saying, if she, in essence, joined today, I mean, that's sunshine law. I'm just throwing that out there.
Well, sunshine law is that you
can't, two people together.
Well, you can't. There cannot be the appearance of impropriety of discussing anything. So yes, you're absolutely right. But if you scheduled her as subsequently a commission member and you were not present for that presentation, we could get around it that way. You can arrange it and just not be present.
In the room or for the presentation?
Not be present at all. possible.
How am I going to do my presentation, though?
Well,
Saying
again.
meeting.
Oh, at a different meeting I could. Oh, absolutely, at a different meeting.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the part that I didn't hear. I was thinking this one, I'm like...
No.
Okay.
Update on the proposed changes to the city tree ordinance. I appeared before the Planning and Zoning Commission last week. What I did not realize is that their meeting on the 20th of December, our resolution, our proposed changes, was on the agenda. I did not know that, and as a result, obviously, I didn't appear. I wasn't here to be able to appear, but I would have made arrangements for it. The bottom line was, I apologize to them. You can obviously go online and see I was going to give Rita a synopsis, and then I thought, well, that's absurd. Just go online and you'll be able to see. I basically presented to them answering any questions, and what was very nice is that, notwithstanding the fact that the invasive species portion that we wanted removed was not removed, there were very interesting questions by the members of the Planning and Zoning Commission as to why it was in there in the first place. Oh, wow. And my answer was, I don't know, but I will do the research to find out. Right. And that I will do. The point of it is that the irrigation portion that we wanted is in there, and they did pass it. And as far as I know, they will then have a public hearing. It'll come up the first time as a public hearing, and then the second time I will again appear just to make sure they don't have any questions. Okay. Okay. Yeah, that's so it's looking it's looking good, and again, I think the invasive species portion of it may be something left for another day. I think it's more important for us to get this piece passed so that, in fact, we do offer an alternative to simply paying money to kill the tree. Right, because that's what we're setting up. We don't have any irrigation. And oddly enough, what I found very interesting in appearing before them, and I won't belabor this, but they didn't understand that. And as a matter of fact, and forgive me, I do not recall the attorney's name. She is the assistant city counsel. Was her position that two things: that one, we were asking for money from the city. And I explained to her that the fund that we essentially move from, we certainly don't control, is city money. So we're not asking for any money from the city. Yeah. But secondly, that within the various pieces of legislation, because as you all know, when you pass a piece of legislation or amend it, it's like a spider web, because there are other pieces of legislation that are predicated or in confrontation with it. And so she said, well, what we were suggesting would require additional modification, and it would not. And fortunately, the commissioners knew that, and I didn't have to be a lawyer and remind them of that by saying, if you read the statute, it says, and alternate ways. So there are alternate methods of, rather than, I'm a developer, I want to remove this tree. I'm a homeowner, I want to remove this tree because I want to do X, Y, and Z. So I'll kill the tree, but I'll pay the city money. Well, there is an alternative to that in certain cases, and that's what we were talking about. So it did pass by the Planning and Zoning, and will now go to the City Council. Yes, ma'am. No.
And as far as the irrigation, you're saying that that's what they were saying too, that we would have to expend money, they'd have to expend money because of that? And I'm like, people sometimes just have the train of thought that, okay, they're going to plant the trees, so it's automatically included kind of thing. I mean, all of us isn't that what we were talking about? And that they just automatically think that the water truck is going to show up.
Well, I think the problem was that please don't misunderstand. I'm not criticizing, although it does seem like it, the assistant city attorney. I don't think that our fund, it's understood that this is city money.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, it's not the tree and beautification money.
Right.
The remediation fund is paid to the city. And what I try to explain is the things that we do with cooperation from you. For example, the trees that were planted along the cemetery route, those kinds of things. So I think she understood after that what we were really talking about is just better ways to preserve the trees that we are hoping won't be killed.
Right. And we're trying to plant.
Well, and it expands the amount of areas that we can install trees in.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so I think that once, and I think Cynthia's point is well taken. I think once she saw, irrigation and land, and she was thinking that we were going to the city for money, and I explained to her that no, that's not true.
We're just trying to free up our own money to do what we need to do, which we had to do all along.
And I did try to emphasize with respect to I was asked why we had included the deletion of the invasive species. And I explained that while the fund we have may look large, the cost of removing something like the pepper tree plant is so enormous because you can't burn it. And I don't know, I mean, maybe Nanette can figure out, maybe she knows. Everything I've read, I don't know what you do with it when you dig it up, because no matter where you put it, it is going to flourish because you can't kill the thing.
I just don't understand why it's in the tree mitigation fund.
I agree.
Why is it there?
I have a suspicion, but I won't enunciate my suspicion until I've done the research.
But that's why my little pen went through it, because I couldn't figure out why it was there in the first place.
And so what I basically said,
if it's a tree fund that people are paying into because they had to take trees out of their yard, and we're using it to place trees in other places in the city to reforest the city, what does taking out exotics have to do with that?
Well, what it has to do with it is the federal and especially the state of Florida and the county laws that were passed at the beginning of this century, because it has become evident what a horrible
but you're talking about millions and millions and millions and millions.
Of course, of course. And what I basically said...
That's a whole other ball of wax.
Right. Yeah. What I basically said was, if that was our duty, we would use up every dollar in that fund for that purpose. Not only would we not fulfill our mission, but we would absolutely no longer be a Tree City USA, because we wouldn't have the funds to be able to continue to meet the criteria of Tree City USA. That was essentially my point. We'll get there.
Okay. Sounds good.
Okay. Arbor Day Foundation Canopy Program Information and Agreement. It is in the packet. Thank you for that. That I just skimmed it. It is outstanding, but more than anything, it does exactly what I really wanted to see. I wanted to see what this contract looked like from our standpoint and their standpoint, and I would like to put a discussion of this on the agenda for our next meeting so that we have the opportunity of really reviewing it and asking pertinent questions. But thank you, Cynthia. That is wonderful.
Okay, you're welcome.
The tree giveaway project, I think since...
The tree giveaway project is kind of tabled until we get all the information and figure out how the logistics are going to be and who's, this is just one entity, this Arbor Day. It's just one idea that we might do.
Right.
The project is still viable, but we just don't know how we're going to do it.
Okay. An update on the proposed dedicatory bench at the Centennial Tree location. I don't know what update we need.
I don't know either. I didn't put it on the...
Well, I know one thing. One thing.
You asked for the wording, if anybody had the wording for what you wanted on the plaque.
I thought we already did that, didn't we?
For Chris, was the plaque?
Oh, we were talking about...
We were talking about having it as a dedicatory for all members.
For all the, yeah.
Right. I'm sorry, Rita. Maybe I'm mixing it up with something else. Is that our mission, to come up with a proposal for the wording?
The other thing is, I talked with Carl Zimmerman a couple of times because he's going to be at my presentation. He's actually going to talk about his choice, the ordinance, which is a big deal. I mean, yeah, we want to talk about the tree ordinance. So I said to him, well, you were the commission chairman for 30 years. And he said, no, I wasn't. I was a chair for, he didn't tell me how many years. I was on the commission for about 30 years. So there are other commissioners, chairs.
Oh, sure.
Okay.
You can look back and see. But that's why we finally said, if I remember correctly, that it should be dedicated to all people who served on the commission as opposed to just commissioners.
Okay, well, my kind of thought on the chair's name was like that board there where you have specific names. So you would have more than one plaque, so whenever someone resigned, whatever, you'd put their name on there.
Oh, I didn't envision that at all. I envisioned just simply a plaque that said, this is dedicated to the city in memory or in commemoration or in Thanksgiving for all of the people who have served on the Tree and Beautification Commission. That was basically what I was looking at.
Okay. I wasn't. That's why I brought it up.
Okay.
Yeah, I wasn't.
The last part of the discussion from last meeting was that Ms. Haynes made a comment that she needed to know what you guys wanted the plaque to read, and she would get a quote for that.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think you want to go with something that's going to be, you take this off and put this on, take this off, put this on, because then you're going to have to keep making a new one, and that's a recurring cost.
I don't think that's what she wants. She wants to add to it.
I just want to add.
You don't want to do that either.
Okay. I'm just throwing it out there.
Yeah, these things are bronze. They're the bench is a finite size, so there's not, once you use the backup, there's no more room.
Okay.
I think if you want to do a plaque that's dedicated to the Tree and Beautification Commission, that's fine. You're right.
My concern with, just as an addition, Cynthia, my concern with any individualization is inevitably you leave somebody out.
Well, but I'm not talking about individual commission members, but it is standard to have the mayor or have the chairman name. In my, because there are vice mayors under each of these mayors. No, I
understand that, but mayor and a city-appointed commission chairman are two entirely different things.
Okay, all right.
In my opinion.
Okay, I'm done.
Okay.
I said my piece.
Okay. All right, so thank you, Rita, for reminding us that will be on the next agenda as well, and everybody kind of just think about the wording.
Okay.
Review of the revised annual report. I've reviewed it. I think it looks great. As everybody's... Now, we're not in any great rush for this because they can't do anything with it until after the election anyway, or does that matter?
It still goes to them.
Okay, all right.
Usually we have it in January to the...
Yeah, I'm fine with it. I think you did a great job. Thank you so much, Rita.
You're welcome.
Do you need a motion?
Yes, I do.
I move that we approve this 2018 annual report, the Tree and Beautification Commission.
Okay.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Thank you, Rita. Treasury report. Do we have one?
It was emailed as far as the packet, but here I got a copy if you want it.
Okay.
And then this one will show that it's not alternate 1 and 2 now that they're regular members.
Yes, but
it wasn't done until
this
after
was a
the
2018.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. So it can't. It also doesn't show Barbara's resignation.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, our tree replacement mitigation fee fund, wow, that's hard to say, is $62,172.57. And our tree planting application fee fund is $769.21. And that is accounted for and line itemed on pages 3 and 4 of the report. We don't need a vote on that. Chairman's matters, I have none. Members' matters, library meeting, Cynthia?
So the library meeting is, and I have Rita, thank God for Rita, printed up the PowerPoint presentation that I have to date, but of course there's changes now too, a tentative PowerPoint presentation. It is Monday, January 28th at 6:30 p.m. at the main library. Carl Zimmerman is going to be one of the speakers, 10, 15 minutes, talk about the tree ordinance. That was his choice, that he wanted to talk about that because it is very important. And then I have Joe Sentence. Thank you to Nanette. He is an arborist. His self-imposed title is Tree Consulting Arborist. Phenomenal guy. I met with him yesterday at the library. He took me around, actually, the library trees. No offense to anyone. It is county. Wonderful pruning job. He said, actually, if we could bring people out to see, this is what it should look like right now. And, he said, there's good and bad days with each section and, whatever. No offense to anyone. And then if I can invite Miss Katherine Booth, if she's not a member, absolutely so. I'm going to email her. And so my presentation is just going to be like 10 minutes of what the tree commission is. I wanted to take a picture of the commission to insert into the PowerPoint here, but we can still do it with the people here. I brought my camera. And then I have just a short video if you want to look over this real quick. This is also... The Growth Award is what we're working on here, and I did do a little bit of research. I think actually we could be in line for our first Growth Award with doing your Centennial Children's Project for the trees, now my library meetings, and then also with having the News Weekly monthly. It says weekly, so I'm not sure about that, but some kind of what do you call it? Not advertisement, but
Publication.
Publication, right? Publication. So we might be able to get our first award because of that.
Okay.
I also have a quick video in here embedded. I don't actually know how I did it on Windows 10, and it was phenomenal. That's what this is. The February 14th, 2018. Of course, it can't play here. It's like a 10-second video of how Dig Gardens actually planted the trees at Crestlawn, because I'm highlighting that as our, most recent project. And then I end the discussion with Beautification weekend. Rita was so nice to give me the pictures to don't forget. And then I envision that these talks at the library will be, let me write it down, January, April, July, and October. So I may feature, because, I mean, I don't think it's beating a dead dog, Miss Katherine to do the next talk in April about mature live oaks. I mean, I think that would be phenomenal. Because one of our biggest beefs all along is, like she said, you can get a tree trimmer, but you really need an arborist. And when I brought the arborist to my yard, he actually walked around and said, okay, this is, and he said all the names, and then he gave me a little bit of history of why, blah, blah. Phenomenal information. Okay. It really is, as opposed to a tree hacker.
I did that recently as well.
Excellent.
It was fascinating.
It is.
Three oak trees that I was concerned about, he said, no, that's just how they look, and that's the kind of the life cycle that they're in. So it was interesting.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm totally...
But I am, based on what she said, and I'm sure I have somebody who is credible, I will at least go back and look at because I can't remember, I'm trying to remember that guy's name. I want to go back and look and just, like she said, I'd like to know more about that process for him and what
me the same thing, because he said that to me about the laurel oak, and he said, you know, how long has it been planted? And I said, well, I know, because I bought the house from the people. They said it was here 10 years. They planted it and blah, 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 for an anniversary. I've been here 25. That's 35 years old. He said that's another 10, 15 years. So I'm thinking, well, where's he getting his information from, too? Now I have to wonder. So I'm glad she brought the topic up.
That was heavy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we don't know what we don't know until we ask.
Well, I just want to add this. One of the things that I have learned in being on this commission as long as I have is that Nanette is a fountain of information. And I remember right after we planted the trees at the school, Fran brought up a real concern of hers because one of the trees was defoliating, and she was very concerned that it was dead. And you assured her that it's okay, you know, there's a certain amount of shock and it's fine, you know, you got to just watch it, make sure you water it, but the bottom line is that, and I think that kind of
knowledge,
just basic assurance is so important to the novice, to the homeowner, because when you plant a tree, you really don't know. You know, there are many people who go to landscape places and they buy trees and they come back and they dig a hole and they put the tree in. And there is this almost religious quality that, well, it's a tree, I planted it and it's going to grow.
Indestructible, right.
And I think that...
You tapped into it exactly with the religious, because it becomes an emotional part of their life.
I wanted this kind of tree here, and that's where I planted it. And I think that we really need to, instead of going to the tops of the trees, I think we need to go to the very bottom too, as a commission. If our goal is to teach and our goal is to inform, I think that we have to look at the everyday person who plants a tree.
Right. Nanette and I, when you first came here just today, we're talking about that very same thing, because I wanted to say, now that was before I knew Miss Katherine was talking about, that's exactly what we were talking about. When you go to the store, you go to the nursery, you go to wherever you're going to get your tree, you want to know what to look at that specific point, because you're already setting up what that tree is going to be for you. And if you have certain, what is it called again in Nanette, when it's bi-channeled? What's the name of it?
Codominant.
Codominant. You're already setting yourself up for a cracked, split tree.
But you know, and what you said is it's I get that a lot. You know, I take it for granted, because it's something that, I mean, I'm 55 now. It's something that I've been doing since I was young. And so it's second nature to me.
Of course.
And I went to school for it, and it's something I've been doing almost my entire life.
Right.
And so it's just part of me.
Right.
So when somebody doesn't know this stuff, I'm like, oh, wow, yeah. Not everybody knows what you know, Nanette.
That's exactly right.
So when I see people planting stuff and they take something out of a pot and they dig a hole and they put it in a hole and then they fill it up with soil and the stuff is buried, like the trunk is like this far under the ground, and I'm thinking, why did you do that?
And it's because they don't know the difference.
They don't want it to fall over.
Right.
Or whatever. Well, I want it to really be sturdy in the ground. Isn't that what you're supposed to? Oh, that's right. Not everybody knows what you know. And so because nobody teaches you that in school, it's not, you got to go to a special school for that. So
and it's and I think that and I think that is
and pruning is the thing, and pruning is the biggest bugaboo for me because, I tell my guys all the time, once you make that cut, you can't put the thing back on.
Right.
If you make a flush cut and you cut too close to the trunk, you can't put it back on. I would rather you leave a stub because I can come back and fix it. Right. But if you make a flush cut or you rip it, I can't fix it. It's done. Right. So pruning is really a big bugaboo for me.
And I think that our desire as a commission is to go in this direction, is to not simply be people who meet every month and say, okay, we got this many people that fed into the
Mitigation
fund, and as I said, that was one of the things that I wanted the P&Z Commission to understand when I appeared before them. Yes, and this is the analogy I used. Yes, we get money, absolutely, but a tree dies, so it's like insurance. When I was in practice, I represented athletes in their contracts, and some of them would be so excited because there would be these insurance policies that were part of their compensation. The problem was they were dead.
Right, or something they were made.
And they thought that was really great. Look at this part. Yeah, but you got to die for that money to come in. And oh, by the way, that key man insurance policy that you're also paying for, those benefits get paid to the owners. So the point of it is, if there is a way, and I realize that a 25-year-old oak tree isn't going to be part of that, but I would hope that the ability to take that down is minimized. But there are, I am sure, many, many trees that are killed, removed improperly because the guys paid the fund. We don't have to do that. We can save that tree. We can give that tree to somebody else. We can plant that tree someplace else. And I think that's important. I think that that's something that we have to be able to do.
Well, and I can't remember how long ago we had the conversation. I know Carl was here. And we talked about other communities' tree ordinances, because we were working on ours. We were updating it. And I know it's not popular, but I brought it up anyway. And I know Katherine talked about the business license that if you want to go into business to be a tree
trimmer or whatever.
You just pay your $30
right. It's an occupational license.
It's an occupational license. You don't have to prove that you have reached any kind of level of proficiency.
And I really didn't understand that completely, and I'm a lawyer, and I didn't understand that completely.
There's no test you have to take.
Right. It's not like taking the bar exam. Right. You're going to get a license to practice law,
you're an arborist,
you got to take the bar exam.
If you want to go out and say that you're Maryland's tree trimming, you could do that. Right. Now, you can't call yourself a certified arborist.
Right. But I can say I'm licensed.
Yes.
And the majority of people don't know the difference.
If you go get the insurance, you can do that.
Right.
But there are communities that do make you have a level of competence. They make you pass a test. They make you have a tree trimming license. And it is kind of onerous, but it makes that level of competency put on the person that has the chainsaw in their hand.
Right.
And they don't let people trim trees unless they have to pass that test. And it helps save the tree canopy.
Okay. Good to know.
And it's in Florida.
Right.
But, and it's in a community that was seeing a lot of this really, really bad tree trimming.
Okay.
I mean,
yeah.
So it's just an added insurance, and it's a benefit too for us to know that those.
But the thing is, though, it's a community that, I mean, there's a cost to that. Like we were saying before, if you don't have the enforcement, you can have a really, really strong tree protection ordinance that's on paper.
Right.
But if you don't have anybody going out in the community and catching the people that are violating the ordinance and writing them up for it, then it doesn't really do anything.
Right.
And, God bless them, our code enforcement officers are wonderful.
Yeah, they are.
But we have two.
Right.
And they have a whole host of things that they're responsible for.
Yeah, it's not just trees.
A whole host of things. And so, they don't have the ability to go out and just drive around and look for stuff. They're responding to complaints and, they have the entire city that they have to do. So, we don't have specific tree police, if you will. So, you have to have that you have to have that behind if you're going to make it that you have to be licensed to do this kind of tree sitting. You almost have to have somebody that's following up. So there's a monetary
right, and you're going to get, and you're obviously going to get pushback from the business community and so forth. So and
I'm sure it was very unpopular where they enacted this.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, we all remember the Mid-Florida debacle. And the trees on,
they still look.
Well, they should have just cut them down. No offense.
Look at them.
Yeah. We all remember that, so learn from that.
But those people that did that are still out there trimming trees.
I know they are. And the other point that she brought up, and I knew that, and I wasn't going to say it, and I'm glad that she did, call me a coward, is that industry employs how many people that they can just get anywhere.
Well,
because they're paying them cash, and I know that for a fact too.
And my problem with that in terms of immigration is that we are quick to condemn the immigrant who's searching for money to feed families for whatever reason, and I'm not suggesting that it's right to be illegally here. But we are not doing anything to the people who are employing them.
Well, you know what, they do have, and I know this for a company that I work with, and I'm not going to get involved in who it was and when it was and whatever. What they did is they knew that those laws existed. So they turned around and they used temporary hiring agencies, still well knowing that happened, and that's how they skirted it.
But the point of it is...
But there are laws in place.
Yeah, but they're not enforced.
Right.
So, at any rate, let's not get into
that's too
political debate.
We don't want to do that.
The next meeting date is February the 21st. I have, my first question is to our authority, Miss Rita. If we wanted to change that meeting date, could we do so?
Yes, you may.
Okay. I am not going to be here on the 21st.
Okay.
Unfortunately.
I have no clue if I'm going to be here or not.
So you certainly can conduct the meeting without me. There is no question. It's just as long as we have a quorum, right? And we've only got 4 members, so my being absent would make sure that nobody else, and that's one of the reasons I'm bringing it up. I can't change the fact that I'm not going to be here. I will be in California.
Oh.
I'm sorry.
So the long and the short of it is, if it's possible to change the meeting, I would like to do it to assure a quorum because we have such an agenda.
Yes, we do.
But I would need to know your availability, both of you. I'm available on, obviously, the 14th, which is Valentine's Day, by the way,
Okay.
but I don't really think that's going to have too much of a problem for 9 o'clock in the morning. And so if Rita says we can change it, if we could change our meeting to the 14th, I would appreciate it. But if we cannot, then we will do the best we can.
14th is okay for me.
As far as I know, in my mind, yes, it's fine.
Okay, all right. Can we then have a motion for that, please?
What happens if I look at my calendar just before I make the motion? If I look at my calendar, because I don't know everything on it right now, I keep a regular physical calendar at home, and we've already made the motion. We just go with what we go. Because you can be here anyway, and I just wouldn't be here.
Right.
I'm just throwing it out.
Okay.
Okay, I'll make a motion to change the monthly tree and beautification meeting in February's meeting to February 14th rather than the 21st.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you.
So February 14th. Okay. Well, we learned a lot today.
We did. May I have a motion to adjourn, please?
I move that we adjourn.
I will second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
We learned a ton.